Seek and Destroy is here, and what better way to start a new patch than to head out in a vessel designed to hunt. Unfortunately, it's designed to hunt U-boats, but I digress. USA has a new top-tier coastal vessel, USS Coolbaugh DE-217, a Buckley-class destroyer escort in service with the United States Navy from 1943 to the 1960s. Coolbaugh was named in honor of Lieutenant Junior Grade Walter Wesley Coolbaugh, whom received the Navy Cross for his conduct at the Battle of the Coral Sea in May of 1942, but then lost his life in an aircraft accident in December of 1942. The Buckley-class destroyer escorts were a class of 102 ships launched in the United States between 1943 and 44. They served in World War II as convoy escorts and anti-submarine warfare ships. The lead ship USS Buckley was launched on the 9th of January 43. The ships were prefabricated in sections at various factories across the United States, and the units assembled in shipyards and then welded together on the slipways. An extremely effective and cheap way to mass produce the much needed escort and anti-submarine vessels. The Buckley class was the second of the so-called destroyer escorts created by the US, succeeding the Refits class. One of the main design differences over the Refits class was that the hull was significantly lengthened. This long hull design proved so successful that it was used for all further destroyer escort classes. In total, 154 were ordered, with 6 being completed as high-speed transports. A further 37 were later converted to the same standard, while 46 of the Buckleys were delivered to the Royal Navy under the Lend-Lease Agreement. These 46 were classed as frigates and named after Royal Navy captains of the Napoleonic Wars, forming part of the Captain-class frigate. The Buckley class's main armament was 3 5-inch 50 caliber guns in dual-purpose open mounts. For anti-aircraft defense, the Buckley class carried 4 1.1-inch guns or 2 Bofors 40mm L60 guns fitted in the X position. These were not included in the Captain class. There were also 8 Oerlikon 20mm cannons positioned in various configurations depending on the ship, with at least 4 fitted in sponsons abaft the funnel. For anti-submarine weapons, the Buckley class had Hedgehog, a British-designed spigot mortar that fired 24 bombs ahead of the ship. This was situated on the main deck just aft of the A-mount. They also carried up to 200 depth charges. Due to their standardized design, many ships were altered to suit the conditions they faced, with the British versions less focused on AA and able to carry hundreds of depth charges in specially fitted rails that extended to midships. USS Coolbaugh was launched on the 29th of May 43 by Philadelphia Navy Yard and sponsored by Mrs. A. Coolbaugh, commissioned on 15th of October 1943. Coolbaugh's service history was prestigious and started when she arrived at Manus on the 10th of October 44 to join the 7th Fleet. Her and her complement put to sea 2 days later for pre-invasion airstrikes on Leyte. She guarded the escort carriers as they covered the landings and as they gallantly defied the efforts of a strong Japanese surface force during the Battle of Samar. The next day, she saved 91 men thrown overboard when the Suwannee CVE-27 was damaged by kamikaze attack. Between 19th and the 27th of November 1944, Coolbaugh screened escort carriers as they provided air cover for convoys supplying forces in the Leyte Gulf, and then sailed to New Guinea to prepare for the Lingayen assault. Between the 28th of February and the 4th of March, she sailed to Iwo Jima to carry away men who had made the original landings, upon their relief by other forces. She returned to Iwo Jima to patrol off the island until the 27th of March, when she cleared for Pearl Harbor. She provided escort for training ships, and her voyage to San Francisco in September of 1945 was concluded with an overhaul. It was during this refit that the 3-inch guns were removed and 5-inch 38 single mounts were fitted fore and aft, as well as various other modernizations. I can't seem to find a detailed list of these modifications, but it's most likely was sensors and modernized anti-submarine warfare equipment. In 46, she arrived at Newport, Rhode Island, her assigned home port, and began local operations in submarine training and other exercises. Assigned permanently to Fleet Sonar School at Key West on the 22nd of August 57, Coolbaugh thereafter operated primarily in Florida waters, often cruising with members of the Naval Reserve on board for training. She was decommissioned 21st of February 1960 at St. Petersburg, Florida, and struck from the Naval Register and scrapped in 1972. Ahoy and welcome to the dry dock. Before we continue, do me a favor, hit that like button. Today we're discussing USS Coolbaugh, which on paper looks like a great addition to the US coastal tree, but unfortunately there are some limitations that are going to make the experience just frustrating, both to earn and to play the ship. Now, the problems don't have anything to do with the ship itself. Unfortunately, it's in this dead zone 4.0 where you either have extremely powerful vessels or you're just food. And in an open map, you're food. In a destroyer fight, exposed, you're food. Unfortunately, you're just food. At 4.0, you're going to be fighting 5.0 destroyers, and that is a more populated part of the game, so inevitably you're going to be pulled up. The ship itself, great design, fairly sturdy. It's what you would expect from an American destroyer on the lighter side. It can take a few hits, and the thing is that if it were to be 3.7, it would probably be too strong, or at the very upper tiers of power. Yeah, I really don't know what else to say. It's a bit too slow. It's got that frigate problem. It's got a destroyer spawn, 43 kilometers an hour, fully spaded. It costs 280,000 RP. You do have a secondary armament in the form of the mortars, which are, despite having rails on the rear, you've only got side launch depth charges. So maybe that has something to do with the 1945 refit, which saw the Buckley-class USS Coolbaugh receive 5-inch guns and a better 40mm layout. The secondary layout is actually on par with the battle-class destroyer from the British tech tree, so she has lots of secondaries, and that's why I say she would probably be too powerful at 3.7, because she has a destroyer hull and she has lots of secondaries. It's kind of that thing where M802 from the German tree also got pushed up. And then there's this, the cost of shells. 45 silver lines every time you want to shoot a different shell. And in this ship, I would prefer to take the 5-inch Common Mark 32, which has more TNT over penetration, as you generally want to be fighting closer range. The second problem with the ship is, because it's so slow, you generally need to point your nose at your destination to get there quickly. And so you will find that a lot of the time you're fighting with just one gun. You have a 25 ready rack, which does give you that American reload rate, but that does quickly run out. And when you're fighting things like the USS Gearing, the Tashkent, any other of the Soviet destroyers at 4.7 and 5.0, you are just outgunned, and so you're relegated to a true support role and just trying to hide. And that is not even including the amount of grinding it takes to get there. When you compare USS Coolbaugh to the USS Alwyn, which for all intents and purposes is a slightly larger Coolbaugh with 2 extra guns and less in the way of secondaries, look at the cost of the shots. 1 silver lion, and it probably costs 1,000 RP to research this ship. So there's a huge disparity, and it's because they're trying to fill out the coastal tree with ships that are on the borderline between blue water and coastal vessels. Really, the Coolbaugh is a blue water ship. There's no really denying it, and I feel a little bit offended that they just shoehorned it in to the coastal fleet. I don't like to be negative. I had a great time in the AN Army, and the AN Army at 4.0 is an absolute destroyer. A real destroyer for the meta of War Thunder. It might have lighter main guns, but it deserves to be at 4.0. The British have the Whitby, which has 2 4.5-inch guns in a single turret, and it's at 3.7. And I think just the fact that it's a destroyer escort and it has 5-inch guns, they've just whacked it in at 4.0. I don't know, let me know what you think. The Leopard, 4.0, twice the firepower, less in the way of secondaries. So I don't know, maybe 4.0 is the battle rating it needed. It's all down to decompression, and 4.0 at the moment is the real battle rating that suffers as a result of that. We will be following up with all of the other vessels that have been released with the new Seek and Destroy patch. Keep an eye out for those. There is no gameplay today because I don't need to show you what you will already know. It wasn't very fun to play, I wasn't very successful, and it took real effort just to play second fiddle. I'm Commander Tyrael. See you next time.